the leader of Hezbollah just made a speech. Hassan Nasrallah, who's been the leader of Hezbollah for a while now, is very secretive. He's very underground. He doesn't make a lot of public appearances out of fear that Israel wants to assassinate him, which he's 100% right about. Israel really wants to assassinate him, so it makes sense that he's doing that. He's been teasing that he's going to be making a big speech a lot recently. I even saw them releasing like teaser trailers, like Super Smash Brothers style, as if they were going to release a new fighter of him just like walking across the camera for like seconds with a tense music. My God, what is he going to say? What is he going to say? And this propaganda effort by Hezbollah and a lot of hype by their supporters led to this speech being widely viewed in the Middle East region. But it wasn't just a bunch of hype, even though here's one of the examples of this hype getting out of control. This is from Mario Nawfal. This is one of Elon Musk's Twitter inner circles who helps inform him on the news and daily events. Unconfirmed, Hezbollah will join the war. According to Verbosti, Hezbollah and Iran have threatened that if the war does not end by dawn on Friday, by the way, it's nighttime on Friday, so I didn't know that didn't hear about it. The axis of resistance will be on the side that directly intervenes in the war, as will Hezbollah. I have not been able to confirm this news beyond them and one other source. However, this is not enough to consider the news verified. If true, this is a very serious red line that will turn the war into a regional conflict. The axis of resistance includes yada 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 yada. Right? And he would go on to even double down on this later. This seems to be playing out exactly as predicted. 1. Hezbollah mobilized yesterday. 2. Other proxies escalated. 3. Truce discussions initiated since our post leaked yesterday. What will Hezbollah's leader say in 5 hours? So the whole world waiting for Hezbollah's leader to make a speech. What will he say? Will he declare war on Israel? Will Hezbollah fire the over 130,000 rockets that they have pointed at Israel and overpower the Iron Dome? Will they send legions and legions of their soldiers to smash into Israel's line in northern Israel to try to deviate or divert troops and resources from the invasion of Gaza? What will Hezbollah do? And then the speech came. And it was an hour and 23 minutes long. It had all the markings of a Hezbollah speech, mass crowd full of their waving the yellow flag of Hezbollah. Who knows how many people are here because they want to be here, how many people are here because they're paid. I'm not saying that Hezbollah doesn't have a base of support. They certainly have a base of support, but that's also something that happens in these situations. Nothing different, just all the same chanting and you would expect from one of the usual rallies. Nothing different at this rally. And then the speech started and it was boring. It was hard for me to watch it. I was watching it with a Lebanese person so they could, clarify any translations that could have been misquoted by Sky News or other outlets that were doing English translation. And he didn't say much.
Shaved Dog's Ass gifted 5 Tier 1 subscriptions. Hey. The DylanBurnsLIVE provides financial support to our bravest warriors, those who are willing to place their own lives in danger to report on the truth. Godspeed.
Godspeed. Thank you so much, Shaved. I appreciate your 5 Tier 1 subs. I appreciate that. You're one of my favorite CIA handlers. Thank you for the 5 Tier 1s. Anyway, he makes a speech. And when I say nothing really happened in this speech, I don't mean to say that literally nothing happened. But let me show you some of the bullet points I have. Some of the highlights from this speech to show you exactly what we're dealing with here. Here's some quotes from Hassan Nasrallah from the speech. For those who say that Hezbollah should start
an immoral, morally corrupt,
interrupting me, huh? Interrupting me with more money for me? How dare you? How dare you interrupt me with more money for me? Shave, thank you for gifting 5 Tier 1s in gutter chat as well. I appreciate it.
Morally corrupt.
Let me give you a few quotes from the speech to give you an idea of what it was like. For those who say that Hezbollah should start a war in the entire region, I say wait. These are the beginnings.
Is an immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
Okay, so they might start a war down the line. He's just hinting at starting a war with Israel, which he has been doing for years and years and years. So that's nothing different. Okay. There's no confirmation of starting a wider war. There's no confirmation of war. What else does he say about the October 7th attacks? The decision was 100% Palestinian, and it was specific in the utmost secrecy, which made it so successful. Okay, so Hezbollah is not saying that they were involved in the October 7th attack, that it was organized by the Palestinians. The Arab and Muslim states must enforce diplomatic and economic isolation to the state of Israel. It is not enough to just issue statements. Israel cannot eliminate Hamas. One of the biggest mistakes that Israel is making right now is setting goals that it cannot achieve, such as eliminating Hamas and the power of Hezbollah. And lastly, this is the last thing I found semi-important. There should be a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The Arab and Islamic nations must at the very least make an effort to achieve a ceasefire, even if some of them do not want to fight or sacrifice anything. Okay, so this is a very pro-Palestinian speech. Specifically, it sounds like it's a pro-Hamas speech. He is warning Israel. He's giving hints at war with Israel or hints at a wider regional conflict. But this is all the same old bull from Hassan Nasrallah. He's been saying stuff outside of like specific references to what happened on October 7th. He's been saying stuff like this for forever. The only thing that's really different about this speech is he's talking about October 7th and that Hamas was the one that organized it, not them. And he's talking about a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Those are the only two things that are different. Everything else is hints or suggestions or if, ands, buts, and maybes. None of it's a commitment. This is what we're going to do to fight Israel. That's not to say that Hezbollah hasn't done anything to fight Israel. Hezbollah has been having small border clashes. There's been shelling both on the Israeli side and on the Hezbollah side. There is missiles being launched by Hezbollah at Israel, not a large scale of missiles. They're certainly not depleting their stock of 130,000 missiles, but they're firing some. But that's not what people in the Hezbollah camp seemingly wanted. If you checked their commentary online and their Telegram groups, on Twitter, on other platforms, this is not what many people who wanted Hezbollah to act to do. Hezbollah basically said, wow, this sucks, huh? We really stand with Gaza. See ya. That was it. And then they said, maybe we'll do something later. I don't know. This speech was hyped to high heaven that it was going to be the start of a wider regional conflict. And if you listen to some of the fearmongers, they said it was going to be the start of World War III. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't have treated this speech with seriousness and see what Hezbollah was going to say. I'm not saying it's impossible that a regional war breaks out. But when I see people like Mario Newfall coming out like saying everything looks like it's lining up for them to invade and intervene, you didn't know that. You didn't know that at all. You just leaned towards what was the scariest scenario that would get you the most social media interactions on the platform. Because if you say, hey, Hassan Nasrallah is going to make a speech tomorrow. We don't know exactly what he's going to cover in that speech, but considering tensions in the region and Hezbollah's recent actions with missiles, it would make sense for us to listen to the speech in case there's the possibility of wider regional war expand. Like, that's not what he needs to say. It's World War III imminent. It looks like we have unconfirmed reports, and the unconfirmed reports he's using are not good sources. They're not credible news outlets. They're not people from within like Hezbollah or Hamas's inner circle that knows this stuff. It's just people talking shit. And that's what it ended up to be. Shit. I really don't like how a lot of journalists use unconfirmed reports or the word reporting. Sometimes, and I've noticed this, and I'm not saying this should never be done. If something looks like it's probably true, but you don't have 100% verification, then using the word reporting and being careful about your terminology so you don't say that it's verified, I'm fine with that. But sometimes I'll see journalists and Mario Newfall and all the people around Elon, seemingly from my experience, who participate in Twitter news, do this all the time. Will they find like the smallest scrap of nothing from nobody? When I say nobody, I mean somebody that doesn't know anything, somebody that's not in the know, somebody who doesn't have a lot of connections, but they'll find something on some unknown like Telegram channel. And if that Telegram channel says something and it's like aliens have assisted the Russians. They're going to now take Kiev in a week, instead of just ignoring it and waiting till more information comes out, so it could be maybe more likely to be true, or you get some verification. He'll just say reporting, no matter how wild the story is. Then you can use the word reporting, and technically, you didn't lie. But I mean, at this point, it seems like the Twitter news space operates not too differently from the same journalistic standards as a 4chan message board. Anyway, moving on. The speech ended up being basically a nothing burger. If you wanted to listen to a few seconds of it in English, here is a segment clipped out by DW, so you can listen to the guy speak. A lot of yelling, though. This is another thing about his speeches. He does a lot of the talking, then sliding into yelling, then sliding back into talking. And if he was declaring war, I'd be like, okay, you earned the yelling speech. But he wasn't. So, I don't know. Seems like weak sauce to me. It was an hour and a half of this. Of everybody waiting to hear the word war, and then it just never coming. And I'm not the only one that's having this reaction. This is the Times of Israel. In much hyped speech, Nasrallah makes threats but does not commit to broader war. Now, that's not to say that a regional war in the area is not impossible. Again, I just want to emphasize this again. I'm not saying that a regional war is impossible. In fact, here's an example of how it could become regional, or how the war could escalate. Israel is fighting Iranian proxies in Syria, bombing them. Now, this is not new. Israel has been bombing Iranian proxies in Syria ever since there were Iranian proxies in Syria, and the Assad government didn't have the power to stop the Israelis from doing it because they were in civil war. So ever since like 2011, stuff like this has been going on. Sometimes more bombs, sometimes less bombs, depending on the time of the year and what the different Iranian-backed proxies are doing in Syria. There's a difference now, though. The difference is now that Israel is no longer communicating with Russia to do these airstrikes. How this would work before is that Israel would call up Russia and say, hey, yo, Mr. Putin. And then Putin would say, hey, Netanyahu, my main G, how's it going? And then Netanyahu would say, I'm going to bomb this base here. And Putin would say, shit, okay, got you. And then they'd bomb it 5 minutes later. And the reason this was done was so that since the Russians control the airspaces over Syria, this would stop them from possibly shooting down Israeli aircraft, and this would prevent Russian troops, which are deployed in Syria, possibly being killed in some Israeli airstrike. So now with that lack of communication, why are they not communicating as much? Well, the Russian government recently had Hamas representatives and the deputy foreign minister of Iran in Moscow. There was an interview recently where one of Hamas's representatives said in an RT on Russian state media, in an RT interview, that Russia has a contract with Hamas to build Kalashnikovs. I don't really believe that, but that is some of the dialogue that's going on in the information space. We just saw that basically lynch mob in Dagestan trying to go and lynch Israeli Jews. And the Russians have, I would say, generally not been too supportive of the Israeli state's actions since October 7th, and has been trying, in my estimation, and I'm not the only person who thinks this, I think there's a good chance that they want the chaos in the region in order to divert American attention, aircraft carriers, ammunition, with America already sending 10,000 shells that were originally intended for Ukraine to now be sent to Israel instead. Russia wants chaos in the region to remove pressure from their war in Ukraine. That's what I believe. Now, you don't have to believe that. I am assuming intentions here, and I always want to make a note when I'm assuming intentions, and I'm not like, here's my documented proof that I know this is Putin's intentions. But it makes sense to me, and that's something I do believe. Okay, so putting that all aside, Israel not communicating with Russia on these airstrikes can lead to very close calls, or possibly a disaster scenario for both countries, where Russian soldiers or Russian pilots or Israeli pilots end up dying, and they have a confrontation similar to the confrontation that Turkey and Russia had after Russian aircraft was shot down over Turkey. I even think in one of the recent airstrikes, it even documents that there were Russian soldiers not far away from one of the recent targets. For example, Syrian air bases have been attacked, multiple air bases in the country, making it so civilian aircraft have to come in to a different airport. This is in order to disable the ability for those airports to be used to transport guns and weapons to Hezbollah, possibly like cripple an air response. But near these air bases that were bombed, there were Russian soldiers and Russian policemen in the area. None died as far as we know, but you can see that as a potential point of escalation. Now, I'm not going to go through all the different ways that this could possibly escalate, but I just wanted to emphasize that just because the speech ended up being a nothing burger and was just basically old man yells at camera, which is nothing new for Hezbollah, doesn't mean that there still isn't risk of a lack of communication, human folly or error, or somebody overestimating or underestimating their own military power, leading to some type of military confrontation that spirals into a larger regional conflict. Especially when you got people like, you know, the leader of Hezbollah and Netanyahu and Putin and mullahs, and you have all these different actors, many of them bad actors. I would actually say, in my opinion, all of them bad actors. It's not good news for the region. But the Hezbollah speech, thankfully, ended up being a nothing burger. Because I just want to emphasize to you guys, a regional war would be the worst case scenario. It'd be bad for aid to Ukraine. It'd be bad for the lives in the region. It'd be bad for the United States and our troops in the region who'd be endangered, who are already getting bombed in areas like Syria and Iraq by Iranian-backed militias. It'd be bad for Iran. It'd be bad for the people of Lebanon. It'd be bad for the Israelis. It'd be bad for basically everybody except Hamas. It'd be bad for everybody except Hamas. And so a regional war should be avoided I'm not going to say the words at all costs because that implies a lot, but if the regional war could be avoided, it should be avoided. I want to add one last thing to why they haven't declared war, or possible reasons as to why Hezbollah has yet to declare war or will not declare war. In Lebanon, there is a massive, massive economic crisis. When I say massive economic crises, let me give you an example of this. I know there's been documentaries on this. Lebanese bank robberies.
We're inside a bank in Beirut where there are depositors currently holding it up.
Now listen to what he said. Listen to what she said. She said depositors. Depositors? Why not the word bank robbers or criminals or thieves? Depositors would imply that these people have put money in the bank. They're robbing a bank that they put their own money in?
He has a gun in his hand and a Molotov cocktail. Bank raids like this are happening all over Lebanon, which is currently in one of the most catastrophic economic crises in modern history. Years of bad economic policies and sprawling government corruption came crashing.
And just sectarian divides in the Lebanese government. But that's more of a, I guess, a controversial thing to say, but I 100% believe.
Down in 2019, leading to mass protests. The Lebanese lira lost nearly 95% of its value, plunging 3/4 of the population below the poverty line. Banks in Lebanon made things worse by limiting people to taking out only $400 a month of their own money. But due to
So that is why they were saying depositors. The reason why those guys went to the bank with a gun and a Molotov wasn't so they would steal everybody else's money. It's so that the bank would give them their own money that they won't let them take out. Isn't that bizarre? It's hard to wrap your mind around. But the point is, Lebanon is an economic catastrophe. Its main port for import and export was blown up in an explosion from expired I don't believe it was expired munitions, but expired explosive material, which was not properly handled, and it exploded, killing tons of people, damaging infrastructure, and crippling the port in Beirut. The country is awash in corruption. The country basically operated its currency like a national Ponzi scheme, which eventually collapsed in on itself. It has terrible sectarian divides and a political class that knows that it's extremely difficult to remove them, if not impossible to remove them from power. And so they feel no incentive to, get on with it, be hasty about it. There's so many problems that Lebanon faces. And even though Hezbollah is a non-governmental organization and it's got its militant wing, which gets $750 million from Iran every year. So it's a very, very, I would say, wealthy, well-off organization, powerful organization, most powerful non-governmental military force on the planet. At the end of the day, it still has to have some popularity in Lebanon. And if it's going to use Lebanon as its staging ground for attacks on Israel and for its base of operations in southern Lebanon, it's going to have some support. And that's why they do have politicians elected to the Lebanese parliament. And if they drag Lebanese people into a war, which from all my conversations with Lebanese people, and from all of the interviews that I've looked at, the vast majority of Lebanese people do not want to go to war with Israel. Lebanese people don't remember the war with Israel very fondly. When Lebanon was invaded by Israel, most people in Lebanon don't like Israel. Let me get you straight. And it's because of that war. It's because of how brutal the Israeli bombing campaign in Lebanon was. It's part of the reason why Hezbollah has so much respect, or has some respect in Lebanese society. I shouldn't say has so much, because there's a lot of people in Lebanon who don't like them. But because they have, the reason why they have any respect, in large part, is because they helped push back Israel during that invasion. But do Lebanese people during this economic crisis really want to launch an invasion of Israel or a war with Israel, which would inevitably lead to Israeli warplanes bombing southern Lebanon, worsening the economic crisis that they're already in? No, I don't think that's what Lebanese people want.